Shruthi, it is so good to see you. How are you today?
I am good, Megan. How are you?
Yay, I'm good too. Enjoying summer. It's finally here in Minnesota, and I don't know,
It is
enjoying the,
not
yeah.
here in Seattle. It is currently 56 degrees, and I don't
Oh,
know how it is almost the middle of June,
uh,
and I have a sweater.
yeah. I mean, our winter lasted a long time, so I feel the pain. But now we're in full-fledged summer here. Well,
Oh, wait.
yes, I'm excited to chat with you. I think this is a super relevant and helpful topic for food bloggers right now. We're going to talk about AI and kind of prompting past the basics and some kind of issues you noticed and how you've dealt with those. But first, we want to know who you are. Who's Shruti? Tell us about you and your blog a little bit.
Yeah. So I run Urban Farmie, which is, I like to think of it as like a global vegetarian recipes hub. The backstory is that I actually work in the food and agriculture space professionally as well, and had worked full time until last Friday, when I actually left
Ooh.
my 15-year career to pursue this full
What?
time. Yeah.
That's
So I
congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you. I am very excited to take this on full time as well. But in that life, I have traveled and worked in over 65 countries. I used to work for the United Nations. Advise in a lot of like agriculture and food spaces. Would come across all of these different recipes, and I have this notebook that I keep with me where I was like always keeping track of new recipes that I learned in all of these travels. And then when the pandemic hit, I thought, oh wow, like I should actually like share these recipes somewhere because I stopped hosting dinner parties. And that was kind of the genesis of the blog. And I've been growing it since 2020, and it is now my full-time income. And so that's the blog and
Amazing.
the business. I have a toddler. My husband works in tech, and both of us are engineers. So, obviously we are constantly tinkering with all of the edge cases of AI.
Yeah.
And I think my AI setup is honestly the only reason all of my different parts of life actually coexist. So I'm kind of excited to share what I've learned from that here today.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention you came to one of our first retreats, the Blog Talk retreats, and we had so much fun at that retreat. It goes down in history as one of the most fun retreats of all time. So thank you for contributing to that.
I had a blast. I think I made some blogging besties from that
I
retreat.
know. And the conga line, I mean, we can't forget that moment.
Oh my
It
goodness, yes.
seared in my brain forever.
Good times, good
Oh,
times.
such good times. Okay, so you're into AI. What areas of your blogging business do you use it, I guess, the most? And do you use it on, like, you use it past the basics? So it's more like what you said, like, not just prompts, but beyond prompts.
Correct. Yeah, so you can kind of think of like a three-step ladder when it comes to using AI. I think most people, and it roughly correlates with what I tend to think of as the surfaces of AI. So I'm going to use Claude as an example because that is probably the like tool that I use the most, but it's pretty similar even if you use ChatGPT or Gemini. With Claude, you kind of have what is called, at the top left, if you have the desktop app installed, it'll have like three little buttons. So the first one is just chat, which is what most people are familiar with, and it's a conversation, right? It's like texting your best friend who happens to be a blogging bestie, and and an expert in all the other things in the world, and it's able to kind of riff with you. There's a second step to it, which is co-work, which you can kind of think of as your blogging bestie sitting next to you and having access to your laptop, because it can actually make changes on your, and I know that sounds scary, you can have
Mm.
permission set so it doesn't accidentally delete things, but it can make changes on your laptop. It can pull information, it can write information, which means, you can connect it to your Google Search Console and your SEMrush and your Airtable and your Gmail. So it like really kind of becomes like a unifying dashboard of sorts that brings all of your pieces together, which previously just lived in your brain.
Yeah.
And then there's Cloud Code, which I think honestly, Cowork is so good these days, it gets you 95% of the way there. You can go into Cloud Code if you're more of like an engineering coding personality and you want to debug and test things and so
Mm.
on. But for 95% of people, code is kind of, you can do it if it's fun, but it's not necessary.
Yeah.
And so when I think of my AI setup, I'm primarily working in co-work and code and using chat when I'm on the go because co-work doesn't work as well on the phone. So if it's more like if I need a quick summary of something or if I just need whatever, I use chat, but I actually mostly work in co-work.
Okay. And is there a comparable situation on ChatGPT and Gemini?
It would be Codex, I think, is the co-work equivalent. So Codex is, I think the big distinction is that co-work or Codex is capable of thinking and doing versus
Gotcha.
chat is much more responding. It's basically just taking stuff and like giving you answers. So it can't actually do anything.
Yeah. Okay. So recently you kind of came across a hiccup with AI where people were stumbling a little bit. Do you want to talk through that?
Yeah, so AI has been a topic of conversation in all of our circles for such a long time now. And I think most of my friends know that a little bit of a mad scientist. I tend to like tinker, etc. And I was having this conversation with them because I've been using AI extensively. I have various projects set up. And one of the projects is really for Instagram and social media. Just because, you have to trial with so many different hooks and
Yeah.
ideas and concepts. And what I realized was that there was a point in time a couple months ago where it was really starting to degrade, and a lot of us have probably experienced this where you're like, the first time you open up to like a new LLM and it's like the best thing since sliced bread. It's just like, whoa, like it's giving me all
Yeah.
of this content that's so amazing. And then a month later, you're like, no, this is not what I asked you. Like, you were doing so much better before.
Yeah.
And,
You're regressing. What is going on?
yeah, it's like, why did you get so dumb? Uh, and the thing is, it's not so much that the model has deteriorated or that it's gotten dumb. What usually happens is that you start with a blank slate. So it's clean, there's no baggage. So the model is giving you really fresh, attentive output. And then over months, what you need to realize is that the memory of any of these AI tools is actually committing a bunch of things that you have said into its memory. So you've added instructions, you've created custom rules, you've thrown some files at it, you have saved conversations. And what happens is that without you realizing it, some of these things are going to contradict each other, right? And so think about like the analogy that I was giving a friend the other day is like, it's like your spice cabinet. One day you're like, I'm going to clean all of this crap out. You sit down, you pull everything, you toss the expired stuff. But then, over time, the next 6 months, you realize you bought like a bottle of whatever marjoram and it's sitting in the back and like you've never used it again. Who uses it? I don't even know what you
Yeah.
use that
I've
for.
never used marjoram.
I have one, but I'm like, what? You have like 3 half-empty bottles of cumin because you keep forgetting it and you keep going to the grocery store and picking something up.
Yep.
Your AI setup is the same thing. It just becomes a junk drawer, right? And at that point, if you start writing prompts and saying, be more conversational, sound warmer, it's going to help a little, but it's just like adding more cumin to a cluttered cabinet. Um,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
that's such a great analogy. We just actually went through our spice cupboard. We had our kitchen cupboards redone, and cream of tartar. We had like four large containers of cream of tartar, and I was like, why? Yeah. So that like puts the perfect visual in my head. So how do we clean it up? Is there one prompt to kind of clean the slate again every time, and how often do we have to do that?
So I think actually it's a two-part process. And my biggest lesson in being kind of an AI power user over the last even year is that I actually learned a lot more about my own writing from teaching the machine to write like me,
Okay.
right?
Interesting.
Because like, when you first get AI to sound like you describe your voice in a way that you think describes you. So you might say something like, I'm warm and conversational. I'm very practical. But the thing is, that could be the same for you and it could be
Yeah.
the same for me, but
Most
you and I
people,
don't
right?
talk the same
Yeah.
way at all, right? And so what ends up happening is that I started doing this stuff, whether it was for writing, short emails to send out, or it was for Instagram hooks or whatever. And it would write something and I'd read it and be like, this is kind of there, but this is not really me. Like for instance, I hate the rule of three. And that's a rhetorical pattern that AI loves. So it'll just be like, fast, flavorful, and unforgettable.
Oh,
And you're like,
yes. Oh my
I
gosh,
hate it.
yes.
I hate
Yep.
it. I hate it. I hate it. I am British educated, and so we use a lot of M dashes and Oxford commas. But then when you see it in AI, I actually had to like, as much as it pained me, I had to create a rule to be like, nope, this is not gonna work. And you have to be like, you start getting more specific, but then that's why it also corrodes over time, because if you got specific in one place, and I think before we started recording, I was sharing this example. So Instagram hooks keep changing, right? Last month, a question-based hook was working best for me. So I was literally telling it, hey, like question-based hooks are working better. So like give me more question-based hooks for X, Y, and Z reels. And then, sometime in the last like 2 weeks or so, that has not been the case anymore. And more authority type hooks are working. So if I say like, I learned this from a chef in Sicily, or, my Indian grandmother taught me this recipe, that has been working better. But now what's going to happen is that AI does not overwrite rules. It always adds. So if you think of all the instructions you've given AI as one document, and it literally, in most cases, is a single reference document, it's going to have question hooks work best for Shruthi at the top. And then like 10 lines later, it's going to say authority hooks work the best for Shruthi at the bottom. And so the next time you're prompting it, the way that the generation process works is that it's going to read through the whole reference list. So now it's thinking questions work best, authority works best. Oh, both of these are contradicting each other. So now it's going to give you something that's a mashup of the two, or it's just going to average it. It's going to pick one, and it starts behaving in unpredictable ways. And so what I do every month is, one, I think within Claude, I work specifically in projects. Actually, this concept of one master project to rule them all is probably what is causing the bloat. Because the way I write in my email is not how I show up on Instagram. My email audience is significantly older. It's a different demographic. And who I am in my email voice is quite different than what I do on social media, because the attention span is so much smaller. And so I have a social media project that has instructions specific to social media and so on. So I have a couple of different of these projects. And every month I spend 1 hour just going through the instruction file. So in Claude, if you're working in Cowork, this is called Claude.md. So every project will have a Claude.md file. If you're in chat, within Claude, if you're working in the chat interface, it'll just be the project instructions on the top right corner. And it's the same thing for ChatGPT too. If you are within a project, it'll have project instructions that you have put in. I just go look at it every single month and I see, and it should be short and sweet. More is not always better, because just think about it. Every single time you are asking a question in that project, the AI is going to go through everything in that document. So you have to ask yourself, is all of this relevant for what I'm trying to do?
Yeah.
And
wow.
if it's
Okay.
not,
Yeah.
yeah.
And if it's not, then you can just delete
it. Okay. Yeah. And I think that will make it much more tuned and kind of like, dialed in to what you're looking for. And that is why having separate projects is also important.
Yeah. Okay, that's kind of mind blowing, but it makes sense. So we're basically confusing AI. We're giving it multiple prompts, and it's like, well, what do I do with all of this information?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, it's not smart enough to say that, though, right? Like, it couldn't come back at you and say, wait, you told me in April this, and now you're telling me this. Instead, it just figures something out and decides on its own what to provide.
Yeah, exactly. And as a result, your answers are going to be kind of garbage.
Yeah.
And that's why people get frustrated, because it's like, and it's never the first couple instances you're using something, right? Like the first times it's always like, whoa, anytime they release a new model, it's like, oh, this is working really well. And then it slowly starts to accumulate craft. It's exactly like the spice drawer. So that analogy, if you keep in mind, you will clean out your spice drawer every month.
I love it. So I'm having a hard time finding it. I feel like it used to be really obvious where the project instructions were
in ChatGPT.
In ChatGPT. It's just not like it's not obvious to me where I feel like like I used to be able to upload a document and that disappeared. The
Huh.
document. I don't know. It was really
It
easy
is.
before, and now I just can't find. Like, I can go to share project, rename project, delete project, but I really don't know where to find. Maybe it's edit. Okay, no,
You're right,
not
actually.
coming up.
I'm just looking at this and it is.
It's not super obvious.
The files are easy because you can actually like just if you hit the top three right button, there's like
Mm-hmm.
a files and chat section in there. So that should show up. It has been so long since I've used ChatGPT projects that I'm.
Yeah, well, I'll figure that out. But can you talk about like ChatGPT versus Claude? Because I've heard lately that food bloggers are moving mostly to Claude. It's just quote better in so many ways. Do you feel that?
I think it's closer than people think, and the gap always keeps closing, right? It's not like one is not being updated and the other is like the like biggest,
Yeah.
it's the next best thing. I choose Claude because I personally really like the company. And I like Anthropic as a company. And I think the only other big difference that I would say is that it has a longer context window, which means that it actually, in some ways, maybe that's detrimental because it does tend to remember things longer.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Yeah.
yeah, but the rules that I was describing, kind of like how do your voice rules, etc. I think work on any tool. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think you can pick one that you feel more comfortable with and get it to really work for you because then it
Yeah.
can work on any of the other tools.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So going in and just tweaking projects, you think on a monthly basis is a good time frame?
I do it on a monthly basis just because I it's truly like the second employee in my business.
I
It has
know.
it
I
is.
know.
And so if you think about feedback to your employees, right? Like you wouldn't just go a year without giving them any feedback. And this is
Right.
your version of giving feedback to your robot employee to do better work for you.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's such a good way to think about it. Is there anything else that you can think of since you're such an AI guru and you're a blogger? What else can help us with AI in our businesses? Any other little tips or tidbits you have for us?
One of the things that I have been thinking about a lot is that you should really think before you start using AI for anything, think about what you will not use AI for. The things that AI is really good are repeatable tasks, right? It is really good as a thought partner in the sense of like, it is good at giving you inputs. At best, it can be a board of advisors, but it cannot be the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
So, I often hear conversations where people are like, well, I just like gave it all of this Google Search Console information and then it told me what to do. And it's like, it's going to sound super confident and it's going to tell you what to do. It doesn't always mean that it is right? AI can tell me, hey, like Shruti, there's like, you know, the search volume, you are working on a Thai cluster right now, and here are 10 recipes that have tremendous search volume. But it's not going to be able to tell me that like, oh, actually, I'm not interested in doing as many Thai desserts because I'm not a dessert blogger, right? Like, and maybe it can at that level of like macro, but it's not going to tell you, hey, like actually, like when I say that I want to work on Indian cuisine, I want to work on these specific sub-regional cuisines, and here's why: because I've lived in X, Y, and Z places, and you know what I mean. It's and you
Yeah.
can give it all of that context, but it is actually that's not what AI is for. I think anything that has a consistent shape that doesn't require lived experience is where I go to AI for. So email subjects, alt text, any kind of structured metadata, reviews, yes, absolutely. Like you can, let's say I was working on a digital product funnel recently, and I told Claude, adopt 5 different hats, expert hats, and tell me what you would change on this. For example, you can be an email expert, you can be a digital
Mm-hmm.
marketing expert, you can be a social media viral like strategist. How would you restructure any of these things? And it gave some really good ideas, but not all
Yeah.
of them were good. And so that strategic layer, recipe development, you can use it absolutely for recipe standardization. So you can use it to run a check to say, hey, like make sure, on my blog, for instance, I do not use partial anything. So if I'm using coconut milk, it needs to be a can of coconut milk. It cannot be half a can. And sometimes, stuff gets away from you. Something like that, which is like very clear and discrete, is easy. But, sometimes it'll be like, I'll just say medium onion. And it's like, what is a medium onion? And so I have standardization rules built in. So it runs a check at the very end. Once everything is finalized, it'll tell me, hey, like this is beating your own rule of something. So that is great, but it can't generate a recipe for you, because what it's going to do is it's going to scrape the internet, and it's just going to like average. Again, it's the same thing as the prompts, right? It's going to average the last like 6 things, and it's going to spit something out. That's not great. So I think the voice, and in today's world, especially with AI overviews really kind of taking over so much of like everything, honestly, I think I would be very like cautious about what your AI can like, synthesize your experience. AI can standardize your experience. AI cannot have lived experience. That's you. So the biggest lesson for me has been that it's been a mirror. It has been really good at telling me what my voice is. How do I write? What if I read something on paper? Can I immediately tell I wrote this? And everybody has tells, and maybe, I used to use y'all a lot because I used to live in Texas, and like it just like blend into every, like even professional emails, you would just like, and I was reading an old post that I wrote in 2020. I was like, this is definitely me.
Yeah. That's funny.
Like that, lean into that. Because that is what is going to make the difference with your audience, especially for them to know, hey, like this is Shruthi. Here's how she talks, and here's how she frames a recipe, or here's how she's going to show up on screen.
Are there any ways you've used AI for your business or your personal life that have really like changed things? Like maybe gotten rid of something you were outsourcing, or just been a life changer in some other way?
Honestly, I think, as I was saying, like I was in a very high stress full-time job until Friday. And I mean, my company was a $14 billion company, and I was a partner there. And so,
wow.
But the only way that I had made the blog work, was because I had the support of AI. So it is impossible to balance. I think AI actually creates space for us to do a lot of these things. And so there's no version of this life where I can work 80-hour weeks, like in order to do all of the things that I want to do. And often what happens in that case is that you lose the things that you really want to do. And instead you are forced to do the things you have to do. You know what I mean? I didn't want to leave consulting to build another consulting shaped life just with different stuff in it. And so I think AI for me is very structural. It is not a productivity hack. It's not a nice to have. I think it is actually the linchpin that holds all the different pieces together. And what AI has, something always has to give in our lives, especially as like, if you're a mom, if you're a business owner, you have so many hats you're wearing. And thankfully, having AI means that the thing that gives is the overhead, not the stuff that I actually care about, and not the business and not the family.
Yeah. Yeah, that was very well said. Yep. Yeah, well, what else do we need to know? What else would be helpful for food bloggers who maybe just use AI on a prompt basis or want to learn a little bit more about it?
I would say really nail down your voice. Think about like if you were to like blindfold a friend and give them a post from your site versus a post from another site that does similar recipes to yours, can they recognize this is you, right? And so I would say audit, like go back, find 5 of your best posts. It can either be the post that like your audience resonated the most with, it can be the best performing post, maybe a mix of all of it, and go through and really like examine it like you're a teacher that is proctoring an exam, right? Like what about this makes that post you?
Mm.
Is it depth over breadth? Like, what is it? Like, what is specific to your authority in the sense of like, and I did a lot of like brand positioning work. I think Katie was on your podcast recently too, right? Katie
Yeah.
Tran,
Yep.
Foodie Brand Lab, like
Mhm.
she is amazing at branding, and she like, walked us through a brand positioning exercise at one point, and she's a good friend. And as I was thinking through it, I realized I am never going to be the most authoritative person on 60 cuisines. That's not going to happen. Somebody that is Ethiopian is going to have more lived experience from that perspective. But I think my unique voice is that I keep recipes in the, kind of like the form that they are in. So somebody that is Ethiopian will taste it and recognize that it is
Mm.
authentic, but you can make it at home in an American kitchen on a Tuesday. So I'm like, hey, like if you don't have tamarind paste, here's how you can substitute that with lime and brown sugar in the exact proportions you use. So it's kind of half engineer, mad scientist, half traveled experience, maintaining some level of authenticity, but without like asking you to buy 15 spices. So that is my
Yeah.
brand and that is my voice. And I knew that vaguely, but I think doing this process of like identifying the posts and really like I like going through and line by line and saying, here's an example of a sentence that I am proud of. Here's how I really write. Here's
Mm.
something that I demonstrated in a post that I think is like super clearly explained, or a paragraph that like somebody wrote you about and said, hey, like this was actually a complicated step, but like the way you wrote it, I
Mm.
really got it. Find those spots because that's you. That's what AI
Yeah.
is not going to replace. And really like use that to continue to build your prompts and your instructions over time. So then it will truly be a mirror of who you are because that's what AI needs to be, a mirror. It is not going to
Yeah.
replace who you are as much as, all the overlords in
Yeah.
the world are trying to.
Right.
That is what they cannot take away from you.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like it's allowing us to get to know ourselves better. And for me lately, it's been allowing me to get to know my brand better. Like there are things, I just had an AEO audit done and I'm kind of moving through that. Without AI, I feel like I would be lost. I would be like, I don't know how to make this change and I don't really know what this means, but AI has helped me move through the points in the audit and really understand who I am, like who's Megan Porta as a brand, and I've been like it just
Yeah.
has given me so much clarity that I never had before. And my business is almost 15 years old, Shruthi. So it's been enlightening. And even like you said, your voice, like I I can pinpoint posts and even paragraphs where it's like, okay, that's who Megan is, and just pulling those out and just remembering, like you said, like remembering who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to like what I was saying is actually like applicable to not just AI, but like your business on the whole. But the one other thing I will say is AI also sometimes springs a trap of getting you to focus on too many things at once because you can do anything with
Mm,
AI. It's never going to
yeah.
tell you, hey, like hit the brakes, like
Right.
you're doing too much.
Yeah.
And so I would really like, I work on
Yeah.
a very strict one project per quarter basis. So every quarter I take on one
I
thing
love that.
and I focus on, and your base load is always going to be stable. You're always going to need to
Yeah.
like publish or update content. You probably need to send out some emails, do something on social, you know what I mean? Like there is that. But then last quarter, I was like focused all on email. I cleaned up my email list. I like really resegmented. I like clarified their experience. And then I said, okay, this quarter, I'm going to focus on Instagram.
Clearly, that's obvious.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think it really allows you to kind of dial each part of that in. And I think really engaging at that deeper level will also tell you when something is not going well.
Mm,
It'll help you identify very quickly that there is drift happening within AI and course correct quicker than a slow kind of like, because if you think about it, right, like each chat is probably only 1% or 5% off. But if you spend 10 hours on it, 5% adds up.
Yeah,
Not
absolutely.
5% that you don't have to give, or you would rather be doing something else with that 5% of your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is it's a lot to think about. I'm gonna go in and clean up my clean up my instructions so that
Instructions,
my
yeah.
my AI tool isn't so confused by me. Well, thank you. This was so helpful in our landscape today. I think this is going to really resonate with a lot of people. So, is there anything else before we say goodbye, Shruti?
No, people are, I mean, if anybody wants to talk about this, you can always reach me. And I actually recently started a Substack talking about this too. Um, it's called Mies and Claude, kind of
Oh,
like
I love
plus.
it. I love it.
So happy to share that. I just write about things that I'm finding as I go along. It's a
Oh
free
my
Substack.
gosh.
I'm just writing stuff. So
I'm going to follow that totally. That sounds super helpful. And you have been on the show before, right? When was that? This
ages
was
ago.
years ago. I can't
Yeah. Oh
remember
my
what
goodness.
we even talked
I
about.
want to say
So
like
many.
2020 because I
Oh
remember
my gosh. Yeah.
I had
I mean,
just
it
hit
was
like 100,000 sessions, or it was
okay.
like something like big, and I was like, "Ooh, yeah!"
Yeah,
Then you
right.
got time to celebrate. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So your show notes can be found at eblogtalk.com/urbanfarmie2 since you've been on before. Go check out Shruthi's previous episode though. I don't know, it might be fun and interesting. Um, but yeah, thank you for joining us. And I have to mention your Instagram account. Definitely go check out Shruthi on Instagram. And you're just Urban Farmie there, correct?
Correct. I
Farmie,
am.
MIE. So go
Correct.
check
Like
that out.
foodie, but farmy because I,
Yes.
work in culture.
Absolutely love it. And congrats again on leaving your job and doing this full time. That's so incredible. I love when people reach that point. It's such a thing to celebrate.
Yeah. No,
So,
I am excited.
yeah, I can tell. I can see it in your face.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan.
Well, thanks, Shruti, again. And thank you, food bloggers, for listening. I will see you next time.